Greetings, ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to some more subscriber replay goodness. We are going to kick off proceedings today with a game from Active Current, playing the most balanced tank in World of Tanks. This is, of course, the Object 252U Defender, and this is the Defender variant because it's got the shiny camouflage. Now, Active, who is driving for us today, is platooned up with Kalaznikova in his Scorpion G, and Baldric, another one of people, in his Lynx 6x6, and they have got Abbey as a map. This is one of my least favourite maps in the game. And, well, Baldric's kind of drawn the short straw here, let's be honest, because Active here in his Defender can just go and brawl on this map and it'll be great. Baldric's in a light tank. Abbey is not a particularly good map for a light tank. But anyway, you can see Baldric's actually gone right over the other side and is trying to do some spotting and duking with an enemy HWK-30 and all that jazz, but we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus here on Active. And here's, ooh, nice little nudge there. I say nice, a nudge at least. And his antics. Now this is a tier 9 match, the Object isn't top tier, and not only is it a tier 9 match, he's kind of bottom tier. There are no tier 7s to shoot at. Now there are no tier 10s either, but there are no tier 7s to shoot at. And those of you who are being observant may or may not have noticed that the friendly team have a Type 4 Heavy who has just found his W key. Now I'm not trying to be too harsh on the guy. There's a number of reasons why he may not have been in the game from the start. Maybe he didn't load in or whatever. It doesn't actually matter. All I'm getting at is it means that up to this point we're less than 2 minutes into this game and the friendly team have already lost 2 tier 8s and a tier 9, and one of their tier 9s has sat in base. Not a particularly auspicious start. Interestingly though, the enemy team has essentially neglected this flank that Active's gone to. The 1-2 lines here are, in my opinion, probably the most important section of the map. This map essentially devolves down into a series of corridors, and if you compare this end of the map with, for example, the 9 line over on the other side, at least from this end of the map, hello Mr. Conqueror, ooh, that shot here, lovely. At least from this end of the map you have shots into the cap circles, so you just have so many more options and there's a couple of different routes to choose. Now for anyone who doesn't know, this thing packs a 122mm gun with 440 alpha damage, 225 penetration, and rather dubious aiming stats. Now, Active has actually got APCR loaded, which pumps the penetration up to 265, and also, of course, will have a higher shell velocity. Now, just looking at what's on the enemy team, who's he likely going to need that level of penetration for? And the friendly team, unfortunately, just lost Baldric as well, as they've completely overrun the other flank. Who are you likely going to need that penetration for? Well, honestly, maybe the weak spots of the T95 if you don't get him in the side. That's about it. The Type 4 Heavy, well, even then, 265 is going to struggle against the front of the Type 4 Heavy anyway. So I'd argue, whilst I understand why you might want to load APCR in a situation like this, you know, you're 2-7 down, I imagine Active is currently thinking, let's try and get as much damage from this game as we can. While we can, and whilst I understand that, goodbye Mr. 53 TP, I don't actually think the APCR in this scenario is going to do Active that much good. In fact, if anything, I think the main thing it's going to do is drain his wallet. But there we go. So, scoreline is 3-8, and there are 3-4 many bad guys in the capture circle, but I don't think they're interested in capping here, they're out for blood. Now Active, because he went over to a flank that hasn't seen any action, it's really weird that you don't get anyone come over here. He hasn't done a huge amount, but it's not really his fault. Ooh, another shot actually hits when he didn't fully aim that one. The T95's like, Defender, go where? Where would you like Active to go? If he goes down to take on that Skoda frontally, he's going to get flanking shots from a HWK-30, UDES 14, T95, Standard B, 53 TP, you get the idea. He has to do this rather carefully. As it is, the friendly Skoda T50 takes out the enemy Skoda T50, and that brings the scoreline to 4-10. Yay? Not really sure where to go with that. There's only 5 of them left on the friendly team. I mean, the T95 apparently is deciding everyone else are cowards. Not the word he used, but, you know. It's easy to call everyone else cowards when A, you're driving a tank destroyer, and B, you have some of the best frontal armour in the game. Active, despite everything, has still managed 1,000 damage here, and is trying to contribute meaningfully to this game. So maybe don't badmouth your teammates, Mr. T95. Anyway, HWK30 might have bitten off a little more than he can chew, because it appears he's almost on his own. Oh, Lorraine, you do not want to be taking this fight. Lorraine's not a bad tank, but this is a frontal engagement versus a defender. No, I do not think this is a particularly great engagement for you. Up to 1,500 damage now, you know, trying to eke out what we can. Now, I'd like to point out, the scoreline is now 6-10. It's not amazing, but it's a lot better than it was. This game is not beyond winnable. Takes a hit there from the standard B, who is firing regular APCR, and interestingly hasn't fired again, making me wonder if he was on his 3rd shot in the magazine, which would give him an awful reload at that point. And between them, Active and the Skoda just polished that guy off as he was caught out, but they lose the object 704, 711. 53 TP over to Active's right hand side, probably the guy he's going to have to deal with next. A full health 53 TP, wonderful. 53 TP bounces on Active, Active does not bounce on him, and there we go. That puts Active up to 2.6k damage done so far. 53 TP is going to give it a go. Shot there through his frontal armour. Don't actually know what the armour profile on that Polish heavy tank is like particularly, but I imagine penetrating him when he's hull down is going to be tricky. Yeah. And, oh dear, that's a T95. This could go quite badly wrong, and that's an AP round. Oof. This is going to get messy. Now, this is where things get a little bit silly. So, shoot the 53 TP. T95 turns around to deal with the Skoda, which makes sense. And suddenly the T95 realises he's 2 versus 1, and Active goes for the track. Oh dear, Mr. T95. Oh no, but the Skoda T50 is dead. The T95 is able to find a wall to back himself up against, and Active is trying to kind of get around the side of this guy. Ooh, shot there into the flank of the T95, and the T95 is actually kind of pushing Active up the wall, and oh my, this is, oh matron. That was a thing that happened. And that T95 is dead, and Active is stuck against the wall here. So, yeah, I don't really have words to describe that. I'll be honest, that's the main reason I wanted to show this replay. It's just a bit stupid. Also, I don't think I've actually shown a defender replay before. So there was that. Right, now, can we kill this Conqueror? Come on. Really want this guy to die, because otherwise the T95 is going to die, and oh, we don't really have a shot. Type 4 heavy. T95, Lorraine 40 ton, and this is where, again, and I've said this in other replays, this is where I'm going to be critical of Active's ammo usage, because the Type 4 Heavy is still alive, the Conqueror is still alive, and he's got 1 APCR shell left. Really, you'd want to use that APCR shell against the Type 4 Heavy, but it goes against the Conqueror. So, despite having over 10 rounds of APCR loaded on this tank to start off with, and I get that Active probably wasn't expecting the match to go on this long. Now Active has to deal with a Type 4 Heavy without any. Now he could HE the guy if we're going to be honest, and that wouldn't be a terrible idea. Snapshot into the SU-130 PM, and now he's loading a HE round, because either the SU or the Type 5 could be HE'd. Need 48 damage to kill the Type, and the HE does nothing. Oh dear. Come on. Now this is the thing. You'll get some people, some community contributors will tell you that high explosive always does damage. It doesn't. You can look at the maths of the thing. Oh, Type 4 Heavy, also firing HE, only hits Active for 93 there. Active manages to finish him off. And this SU-130 is really making a hash of this. That's the second shell to go into Active's tracks, I think. Oh dear, and there's a Lorraine around here somewhere. And that means almost certainly it's the Stilitzwang who is in the cap. But can Active even make it back in time? He's got 30 seconds. And there's the Lorraine behind him. Shot on the SU. That was lucky. Not even aiming it. Angling. If he goes out now, the Lorraine will just nail him in the butt. So, try and reverse side scrape against this guy, but you're running out of time. If you want to try and win this, let's not bother aiming. Kill that guy, but with 9 seconds left on the cap counter. Oh, I don't think that guy's going to get out of the cap circle, is he? No. And that, unfortunately, is where the game ends. And Active, despite doing, that we've seen, 6,225 damage in a tier 9 match, and picking up 7 kills, it's going to lose to a base capping Stilitzwang. Well played to that Stilitzwang. That was clearly, I think in that case, the best situation, or the best decision for him. How that SU-130 kept missing the shots up on the rear of the defender, I don't know. But I guess anyone can be unlucky. And the SU isn't the most accurate tank in the world. So, let's have a look at the post-game stats. So, that was a little bit painful. Ace Tanker, Bruiser, Duelist, Fire for Effect, High Caliber, and a Top Gun there for Active in his defender. 6,225 damage done, 7 kills, 1,168 base experience. However, that is before we factor in, for example, the heroic resistance contribution. We'll have a look at the XP in a moment, but it's quite a lot. No one on the enemy team really excelled, if we're going to be honest. Like that SU-130 PM. He did 0 damage in the end. 14 shots fired. 6 hits. No damage. He either got incredibly unlucky or just wasn't very good. And if we have a look at Active's team, I mean, Skoda T50, 3,500 damage from him. That's none too shabby. T95, 2,000 from him, but a very whingy, moany 2,000. Type 4 Heavy, who was really late at the beginning. The enemy team just did better overall than Active's team. Active was just the only really outstanding player, or the only person to get an outstanding result in that situation. 19 shots fired, 19 hits, 17 penetrations. I would like to point out, Active did get lucky with a lot of those shots. They weren't fully aimed, they hit, they penned, they did what they needed to do. Don't expect that sort of performance from this gun in every match. Most of that damage was from relatively close range. 9 hits received, 2 penetrated, 6 did not. 940 damage blocked by Active's armour. 9 enemy vehicles damaged, 7 destroyed, 226 assistance damage, and 3.34 kilometres travelled. With a premium account, that was a 103,000 credit profit, even though he spent 67,500 credits on ammunition. And for experience, when you factor everything in, quite a lot of XP. 1,168 plus 652 for heroic resistance. You're already at about 1,800 base experience. And then you can add in 273 for the vehicle tier, and he gets a bonus for playing in a platoon, but I don't think that's factored in when you're looking at Ace Tanker awards and whatnot. So, painful result there. My only criticism would be, once again, firing so much APCR when it wasn't necessary meant that that engagement on the Type 4 could have been really messy had the guy had more health. So I would always recommend, use your ammunition wisely. I get that Active probably didn't expect to be in that situation, but play for the win. Use your ammunition wisely, and then you'll try and kind of accommodate for that as the game goes. Anyway, that's our first match. We've got another one to look at today. Here we go then, game number 2, and we join Pansy again. And he's driving the American Tier 9 Reward Heavy Tank, the AE Phase 1. This is a weird machine. Just for starters, can I just draw your attention to the suspension, which is done in 2 segments on each side. It's not conventionally laid out. It's It's bizarre. Anyway, this thing, because I don't know very much about it, packs a 120mm gun, basically the same sort of gun you get on the M103 by the looks of it. Yeah, with heat ammunition and all that good stuff. So this is essentially the M103's gun. And I believe you get this tank from playing Frontline / Steel Hunter, I think. Next year, when 2021 rolls around, I would like to spend a little bit of time when they come up playing Frontline anyway. I hate Steel Hunter with a passion, but I'll happily play Frontlines. Last time I played that, I remembered it being quite good fun. Anyway, Pansy here is platooned up with Chaos Raven, who's in his standard B. They're in a tier 10 match. It's 3-5-7 matchmaking, so there are tier 8s to shoot, and they're here on Prokhorovka. Not a sort of typical, yay, I'm in a heavy tank, this is the map I wanted to see map. Having said that, to be fair, being an American heavy tank and at tier 9, the AE Phase 1 gets pretty decent view range by the look of it. I would be very curious to know whether Pansy's running optics or if he's just running vents. This is from before Equipment 2.0 again. So, there's not going to be things like improved hardening and all that stuff. Hardening. Anyway, AMX 30 there, really caught out. Lovely shot into the side of him for 403, and someone else gives that guy a bit of a slapping as well, and he's really not doing particularly well. So, what are we going to be able to do? Well, if you're in a heavy tank and you're on Prokhorovka, and you're not really sure what else to do, by the way, I'm just going to interrupt myself to draw your attention to the sort of H1, H2, J1, J2, K1, K2 area, that bottom left-hand corner of the map. So if you're playing a heavy tank, and you're on this map, you could go and camp in that bottom left corner. Please don't. Because what the hell are you doing, essentially? I mean, they've already got, what, an Object 704 down there, and they've got a couple of other tank destroyers, I think, up on the hill. The point is that, generally speaking, if you're down in that bottom left corner of the map, most of the time you're being useless. It is not a good position on the map to be. Much better to be where Pansy is. This position has several advantages. One, you're centrally located in the map, which means that you can get shots on as large an area of the map as possible. You can see almost the entire map is within that yellow render distance circle on Pansy's minimap. You've also got the possibility of doing some spotting. You can spot for your team. You can also relocate relatively easily because you're centrally located, and specifically on this map, you can get a crossfire going with your hill. If there are bad guys on the hill, and you know, the bad guys have been convinced that being on the hill is a bad idea, so there aren't really anymore, apart from that type who quickly came to the conclusion this was not what he wanted to do. Sorry, not a type, the AMX 30. But if you've got bad guys over on the hill, like I said, you can get a crossfire going. Hello, Mr. K-pop Panther. You can get a crossfire going between the two, so you can shoot up onto the hill and they can shoot anything that you spot, say for example in about D6 where that Object 704 was spotted. Now in this position, oh, there goes Chaos Raven. In this particular position, and Pansy is just going to be spotting, farming, using his good gun depression, and I'm assuming fairly respectable turret armour, but I don't actually know very much about this tank, like I said. So, I could be wrong. I haven't checked this thing, and there may only be one artillery in the game, but it's going to shoot Pansy. However, you might have noticed, because Pansy just got shot, that gives him a pretty good idea of where the artillery is, and he just let his team know. So, you know, expect artillery to be there, he's going to give you a slapping. And here you can actually see from this position, Pansy is not only able to get shots on the bad guys, he's also able to do some spotting himself. That's a rather... Well, I mean, rushing forward like that can kind of work, given the sort of situation, but given that Pansy is where he is, I would not recommend Mr. IS-32 being there, because something like that's probably going to happen. And suddenly, the only people who appear to be left on this flank, at least that we know of, are the IS-7. And there was a HWK-12. Oh, he's cleared off. At T-95, is it? And everyone else has been dealt with. Now that HWK-12 is going to be irritating. Something tells me, given the bat chat, artillery shot Pansy once, he might do it again. But, you know, just my sixth sense going off, not the skill, just, you know, Sod's Law, Murphy's Law, whatever you want to call it. And, oh, there's an Object 257 over here as well. Wonderful. More people to farm. Oh, and there's a TVP. Now, that's not to say that the friendly team aren't taking casualties on this flank. Obviously they are. But this just seems to be a battle of the campers versus those people who are YOLOing forwards. Now, one thing that's interesting to point out. I've seen a lot of people complain when they get campers on their team. Oh no, the scrubs, they're camping, blah 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 blah. Sure, fine, whatever, complain. But you know what you could do instead of complaining? You could try and play in such a way that you utilise your campers. So in this particular example, yes, Pansy had a load of campers. Do you know what? There were a bunch of enemy tanks who were driving toward the campers. So Pansy got himself into a position where he can spot said campers, and he can also... Oh, that was a lucky shot. He can spot said campers, and he can also shoot said campers. And suddenly, if your campers are providing you covering fire, and they're shooting the things you spot, and you're shooting the things they spot, suddenly you can actually form a little bit of a kill zone, which is kind of what they're doing over here. Now, Pansy's a bit worried about engaging the IS-7 from that position, I would assume, because he doesn't want to get nailed by the TVP or anyone else that might be over there. And how many of the enemy team have gone down this flank? I mean, the other thing you have to bear in mind is just because your team is camping or is all on one flank doesn't mean the enemy team's going to play any better. So never give up in these situations, just keep plugging away, do the best you can and see what happens. And you can see here, yes, Pansy's team behind, but only by one tank. And now again they've got a bit of a crossfire going on. You've got the IS-7 and Pansy here in his AE Phase 1, and there's the Defender back in K2. Now, I'm not really saying you should expect a great deal of much from a Defender who thinks it's a good idea to go to K2, but at the very least, if you give him things to shoot, he's probably going to shoot them. Goodbye, Mr. Object 257. So, you know, work with what you've got and see what you can do. Now, speaking of which, this is an IS-22. This is one of the double-barreled Soviet heavy tanks. That thing could be a little bit dangerous. Like that, he's got, what, two 100mm guns, I believe? 250 alpha per pop. Or, of course, if you want to fire them both at the same time, that's 500 damage. That's quite a lot. From a tier 8, especially. So, Pansy's team have lost the Defender. They're one tank down again. But Pansy's sitting here on 4.7k damage, 3.8k assistance, and 3 kills. None too shabby. Now the friendly team, they've swung right the way down the 9 and 0 lines, and they're sort of... they're trying to flank around and pincer the enemy team, but you can see the AMX-30B and the WZ there are sort of dithering in A6. Now, I don't want to be too harsh on them, because it just takes an artillery or a tank destroyer in the background and a light tank who's got 3 brain cells to rub together and can spot things, and you can start having problems. Like we just saw, for example, the artillery nail that WZ-111. So let's not be too harsh on them. Now Pansy's trying to do something about this IS-7. Ooh, IS-7 is firing HE. That's an interesting ammunition choice. And did 223 damage, but hey, he's dead, so let's not worry overly about that. IS-22 and Skoda T50, well, TVP, sorry, T50/51. We know where, the Skoda has relocated to deal with the AMX, so Pansy can move forward here. Okay, the AMX dealt with the, okay, not Skoda, TVP, sorry. The AMX dealt with the TVP, so 4 of them left on the enemy team. Pansy might be able to really get some hurt going in on this IS-22. Now, the IS-22 isn't going to kill Pansy in a single salvo, but we don't want to take that guy lightly anyway. It would be a real shame to take 500 damage to the face from that double-barreled Soviet heavy tank. Just coming over this ridgeline. Can he finish this guy off? Yes, he can. Lovely shot. Very nicely done. And he becomes Pansy's 4th kill. HWK. Oh, there's the artillery again. HWK, Rheinmetall Borsig, and, of course, that artillery piece. Now, Pansy's down to 5 rounds of armor piercing. He's not realistically going to run out of ammo because he's still got 11 heat rounds and 2 high explosive. I was just about to say, I think in this situation I would be tempted to load the HE, and that's exactly what Pansy does. Now, even if the enemy get lucky and you don't penetrate with HE, you've got a pretty good chance in this situation of tracking them. And against that HWK-12, that'll be very valuable. In fact, if memory serves, the HWK is lacking on the hit point department, so a HE round will probably kill him regardless of whether it penetrates or not. Rheinmetall Borsig, very weakly armoured tank. Would definitely be nice to do something about him. And the Batchat 155-55. Yeah. I think HE in this particular scenario is a perfectly sensible choice. Now we do need to be a little wary of the clock. We've got under 5 minutes left. And none of the friendly tanks who are left alive are exactly that mobile. HWK-12 would be really nice to be able to finish this guy off, but he's just moving too quickly. And that's going to be awkward. Pansy gets spotted here. No! You just know as soon as you get spotted, you're going to eat artillery. Oh. And the Rheinmetall Borsig takes out the T-28. Well, that is unfortunate. It'd be really nice if that T-28 could let the team know from whence he was shot. Hello, Borsig, and of course it doesn't penetrate. So that means this Borsig is still a 2-shot, which is annoying. Please don't penetrate, please don't penetrate, please don't. Damn it. Penetrate. Well, that's unfortunate. Alright, so we're going to switch view to the IS-7 over here. Good game there from Pansy. And apparently the Rheinmetall was firing HE. He's using the big gun and firing HE. Still did almost 500 damage. Is that almost 500? That's ridiculous. That must have been 449. That's a high damage roll. I'm just thinking about HE mechanics. So that was a non-penetrating HE shell, the damage automatically gets halved, that then rolled high, quite high. In fact, that must have been close to a max roll. Anyway, sorry, I'm nerding out about game mechanics, but Pansy got unlucky with that shot there from the Borsig. I don't think there's any way he could reasonably have been expecting the Borsig to be firing high explosive and rolling high. I mean, you can't predict that. That's just RNG giveth and RNG taketh away, right? So, with 2 minutes 40 left on the clock, can this IS-7 pull the game out of the bag? He's come around the flank, but the problem with this play is that we know where the Borsig was last spotted. He was last spotted by the enemy base. So I'm really not sure what the IS-7 thinks he's going to achieve here, if I'm honest. So, but he's just defending. Okay, he's defending his cap. He's waiting for the enemy to get to him. But the problem there is the Borsig is so slow that there's no guarantee the Borsig would actually get to his cap in time. And so this doesn't seem like a winning play to me. It really doesn't. I would be loading high explosive if I were in this IS-7, and I would be going to kill that Borsig. Because I just don't see any way you're going to win this. Even if the Borsig wants to come over and cap, he's so slow that I'm not sure he physically can. I don't know. Let's just speed this along a little bit. 1 minute 30 left on the clock. Anyone? Anyone? Not so much, no. Right. Now we know where the HWK-12 is, but unfortunately they know where the IS-7 is as well, and well, that's artillery. It's not as if the enemy team is playing this particularly aggressively either, although given the tanks they've got remaining, I guess I can't really blame them too much, and that was a bad miss! Because the HWK-12 is going to keep the IS-7 spotted, and yeah, this is just an awkward mess, really. Oh, I've got a funny feeling about this. You know when you watch a match and you just get that feeling that it's going to be a draw because you don't see a way in which either team's going to win it, realistically. Yeah, and if I just play this to the end, unfortunately, I mean, I already knew the result of this before, but there we go. That's the game. It is a draw, as things go. Which is a real shame. I appreciate I've given you a depressing video, 1 defeat and a draw, but never mind. Let's have a look at the post-game stats. So, yes, that was a draw, which sucks. Ace Tanker, Bruiser, Fighter, Fire for Effect, Confederate, and High Caliber. Just quickly to say, I love the fact that Wargaming made Heroic Resistance a thing, so that if you get a battle award, you'll effectively get the XP as if you had won the game. It's basically just to acknowledge, okay, yeah, you lost. Your team weren't great, but you were awesome. Why don't you get more XP? Why don't you get the ace tanker and all that jazz? Because otherwise this would not have been an ace tanker, and that would have been a kick in the teeth. But anyway, it is what it is. 5,848 damage done, 4 kills, and 1,001 base experience before we include the bonus for that heroic resistance. Shoutouts, by the way, on the enemy team, the HWK-12 called, what is that name? Is that really? Yes, his name is the Average Fisherman. That's beautiful. 5,653 assistance from him. Lovely there. The guy travelled over 9 kilometres. Like, well done to him. And a shout out to artillery. I'm sorry, some of you will hate that, but I don't care. He did 3,000 damage in his tier 9 artillery. And let me tell you, the Batchat 15555 does not do a huge amount of damage per shot. He damaged 12 of the enemy, i.e. Pansy's team, and picked him up a Confederate medal in the process. 5 kills, 1,563 damage from stunning. Just well done to him. That was a well-played artillery game. From his perspective. El Borsigo, that was a curious game. Big gun, 12 shots fired, 5 hits, only 1 penetrates. That's because as far as I could work out, he was firing a lot of high explosive. Go figure. Unfortunately, just across the board, the enemy team did better than Pansy's team there, except for Pansy, who was doing very well. And I don't want to be too harsh on Muxluxer in his IS-7, because whilst I was critical of his play at the end, and I don't see how that was ever going to result in a win, and I think he should have played that differently. I do understand that at that point, with about 2 minutes left on the match, it would have been quite a tall order to pull a win out of the bag there. It is what it is. 24 shots fired, 20 hits, 17 pens for that damage count, most of which was from close range. 8 hits received, 1 penetrated, 2 didn't, 5 splash damage. Only 1 penetration Pansy actually took there, but he still died because of all the high explosive splashing on him from artillery, and of course, that bleeding Borsig. 600 damage blocked by his armour, 3 enemy vehicles spotted, 12 damaged, 4 destroyed, 4,304 assistance in a heavy tank, 2.92 kilometres travelled, and made a substantial profit. This is a reward tank, not a premium tank, so it doesn't make shed tons of money, but he still made 65,000 credits profit, with a premium account, of course. And if we look at experience, 1,001 base plus, oh good lord, 545 for heroic resistance, which is always nice, and the experience just keeps racking up. You can see it there for yourselves. So, there we go. A couple of heavy tank games there for you, where the person in question does their best, but sometimes you just can't carry the scrubs hard enough. Go figure. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to submit your own replays to yours truly, jump on Discord. I have a link in the description to the Discord server. Take your replays, upload them to What Replays, and put the URL to those replays. I've said the word replay too many times at this point, but put the URL to them in the appropriate channel on Discord. If you want to support the channel any more than just, subscribing, then there should also be a link to Patreon in the video description. I hope you guys continue to enjoy your festive period. If you are watching this on the day it is released, then that means New Year's is rapidly approaching, and, well, hopefully you guys are ready for 2021 and all of the different things it will presumably bring based on what people normally say about New Year's stuff. I'll say no more about that. Anyway, I hope you guys are having fun, enjoying yourselves, and I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.